Hi, Llyn Hunter here, Llynhunter, storyboard artist for animation and illustrator. And today we're going to be painting the Batsquach from last time. This particular area, I realized I really don't like what I did here. I want to change the line work so that it goes in here so that his arm here stands out. So I thought I started erasing it before I was going to do the painting, and I thought I should come in and show you folks how to clean up an ink line on watercolor paper. This is your standard box cutter knife. You can buy them in packs of 100 at your local hardware store. They come in very handy for this type of a technique. Now this paper is rather heavy. It's 140 pound or 300 gram hot press watercolor paper. So here, I'll show you this is it's Arches. You can see Arches watercolor paper, and this happens to be a it's not quite 8x10 because it is a sorry, didn't mean to bang the camera, but I wanted to show you the whole thing. The sizes did it again, my apologies. But the sizes are close but not quite 8x10 on this particular pad. But what I wanted to show you is I want to erase this particular portion right here, and I'm going to take this knife, and you can see I'm using the flat of the knife on the pad, and I've excuse the mild camera shake because my camera is right above. In order to get the camera right where I need it, it's kind of attached to the or it's touching the table that I've got my artwork on. But I'm very, very carefully scraping back those lines. And up here, this edge right here, I don't want that to show. So I'm scraping that back, and it's like you're sanding. It's almost, because you've got a flat edge razor here is what it is, and it's sanding back the fibers of the paper that are lying on the surface of the watercolor pad. And I'm just gonna, I try to be, you know, as quote-unquote gentle as I can, but I'm a very rough-handed artist. I'm a very rough-handed person. I'm exact and not exacting at the same time. Okay, so you've got all that dust there, so I'm gonna take it to the side and just sweep it off for the moment into a waste paper basket that's nearby. There, and then I'm going to go in with a kneaded eraser. This is a small chunk of kneaded eraser. You can get these at any Staples or Michaels or what have you. Usually they come in a pack. Mars Statler sells them in a pack with a plastic eraser like this, but usually it's brown for some reason. I don't know why they sell it's still, I think it's still just a plastic eraser, but for some reason it's brown. But anyways, then I'll go over that with the kneaded eraser. And then you take a plastic eraser and you go back over that. And that gets most of the fibers out of there. And while it also burnishes the remaining fibers down into the paper. So I'm going to sweep that off to the side with a garbage can again. There. And you can tell that cleared away most of the ink. I'm going to go in a little bit more. Okay, and one more time with the plastic eraser. Brush that off. And then kneaded eraser again. And again, what this does too is it burnishes down the fibers of the paper, so that if you go in there with a loupe or a magnifying glass, you'll see there's still some fibers sticking up maybe, Go over a little bit more, very, very lightly. So like any like little hairs that are sticking up, that'll get the hairs. Go over the kneading eraser, plastic eraser one more time. And again, with the plastic eraser, they leave behind those little nubbies or dust particles, so you want to brush those off. And then go back in with your kneaded eraser again. And if you do that 2 or 3 times, just to make sure that it feels good. And like I said, if you went in with a magnifying glass, you'd be able to see where there's like an edge where you've filed off that paper. But it's not enough for anyone to really notice. Then I'm going to come back in here. I want to get the wing that I didn't quite get in there. And there's an allusion to a bone there, because this is supposed to be a bat, so he's got to have, you know, like there's a bone there. Okay. I probably made it a little bit more flexible than I really should have. And then this here. But the thing is, what I wanted to do was this rock face. I wanted to come back in here, and I want to leave this area open, and I'm going to put some more trees down in here. So it's like I've got this line of trees going on here. I'm going to bring this line of trees down here. So this area is more open underneath there than with the rock. I didn't like the tangent. Okay. Now I'm going to turn off the camera. I want to get a shot of this on my computer so I can turn this into a coloring page. Whenever I'm doing a linear underpainting or underdrawing like this, I like to make sure that I have a copy of the black line, so that if I ever want to make a coloring book page of it, or if I wanted to go back and do it digitally, paint it digitally rather than the way I'm gonna use traditional watercolor on this one. But I could go back in, and since I've got the line drawing completely done, there's the base out for my digital painting. So I'm gonna basically take this piece now, and like I said, I'm gonna scan it, and then I will bring it back and we're gonna paint it. Okay. Hi, and we are back after I've scanned the piece. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some Scotch masking or Scotch transparent tape, good old Scotch magic tape. You can use just about any quote-unquote magic type of tape. What I'm going to do is I've actually marked off. You can't see them very well at the moment because I erased the lines away, but I am guesstimating here. Edges for the painting, because I've designed it so that it can fit within a frame or a mat if the person who's going to get it so desires to put it in a mat. Yeah, that's better. I'll have that a little bit off. So what I'm going to use is Scotch magic tape, even though this particular piece is actually on a watercolor block. I'm just masking these areas out because I basically want a white border around it. And Scotch transparent tape is great stuff for doing that. It's waterproof, and it does not stick very hard to the surface of your paper, so that when you are done painting, you can peel it away and you don't have to worry about it ripping your paper. I've never been very good at the paper tape that traditional watercolorists use. Considering I am a traditional watercolorist, I don't deal with that paper tape wetting it and putting it down very well. Never have been. This is nice and easy. Does the same thing the paper tape does. And no muss, no fuss. If you want to use paper tape, that's up to you. Masking tape does not work real well because it is not as water resistant, and it leaves a dickled edge. It leaves, you know, like little notches on the edge. There we go, just tucking those down. So I can see what I'm doing there. There we go. So that's what I'm doing with that. And then just, you know, you burnish it down with your fingers or a knife. Knife usually works better if you want to make sure that everything does not get under. I'll just do this sort of thing. Or the edge of your brush. Oops. Great. So I knocked the camera. My perpetual. This, what we're going to start with, this is my over 40-year-old Grumbrocker brush. This is my favorite 1-incher that I've had for, like I said, 40 years. I have beaten this thing to death. My art instructors always said, be good to your brushes in the last 40 years. You can be bad to a good brush for 40 years and it'll still keep a licking and keep on ticking. And that's just that particular brush. What I'm going to do too, put this aside for a second. I did not clean my palette because there are two things. I like to keep my palette dirty sometimes, believe it or not, because you can come up with colors that you would not normally come up with by having a dirty palette. By, you know, okay, I wasn't going to put that red in there, and hey, geez, that looks actually pretty good there. What I'm doing right now, I just wetted my paper towel, and I'm just kind of wiping the inside of the palette, and then I'm going back in and wiping it out. Like I said, I'm not being totally clean with it, so it's not going to be perfectly clean, and you can do that with this area too, but I'm thinking about, I want some of those colors maybe mixed together for a dirty wash. Pure color out of a tube I'm never fond of, so it's like I don't mind a dirty palette per se, just because of the happy accidents you can get with a dirty palette. It's a personal thing. Some people are nitpicky and totally clean about their stuff, and excuse me if you're one of those type of people. I'm basically slovenly, and I don't need a totally clean palette. Now, on the background on this one, we want a little bit of a night sky. I've got this ultramarine going down here. Actually, maybe I'll just use that now that I do want some of that ultramarine though. So I'm throwing some water. This is my ultramarine right here. Looks like I'm out of Payne's Gray. Or I'm sorry, about, I seem to be out of Prussian blue. Well, I'm going to be doing the, oh, what I got here? No, this piece of something. Not sure, I think that might be my, open my palette and gee whiz, I'm out of paint. That might be the little bit of Prussian blue that I'm missing. This is definitely ultramarine. No, there's my Prussian blue. No, it's my cobalt. I'm out of cobalt. I'm definitely using ultramarine at the moment, though. That's my Prussian blue. That's my cobalt. That's my ultramarine. You can tell how absolutely precise I am with this stuff. Anyways, I'm mixing up a batch of ultramarine here, because that's what I'm going to use for the base color for the entire thing. And as I pulled out my 1-inch brush there, and I'm going, no, I don't think I want to use that, because it all of a sudden hit me, ooh, yeah, I need to have some light areas on the bat. So it's like, do I give it a full ultramarine over the top? Yeah, I do. And this is the way I work. I'm thinking, it's like, how do I want to utilize the color in that area? So I'm going to take my 1-incher. And the only portion that I'm probably not going to totally paint with the ultramarine is the moon. I'm just going to give this an overall. And you'll notice I'm kind of letting everything puddle a bit. We're going pretty wet with this, and I'm going very light. because all I want this is to be, this is my base color. This is my undercoat, because he's going to be in the night, and I am going to leave a lot of light color on the edge of his fur, because I want him to stand out with the light from the moon. So basically, we're just giving kind of an overall color here. And then I think what I'm going to do too is I'm going to take this and I'm going to give this a little bit of extra dark down here. Now, when I come back in with that down here, and I think over here, because these are going to be slightly in shadow, and that may or may not do anything for me. By the time I give everything several coats over, sometimes you'll attempt to get a particular effect going, and then by the time you've put so many coats of paint on it, you're not sure where it's going. But sometimes this is like giving your painting that center tone if you've done any kind of pastel work. And it's building up for some reason. Oh, I know why, because that's where I erased earlier. So I'm going to just tap it away just a little bit right in that area. There we go. And I'm going to heavy it up a little bit more here, because this area here is all going to go dark. And of course I got a little bit of pussycat fur right there, so I'm going to scrub that off. If you have cats, I hate to tell you this, folks, you are always going to have cat hair in your paintings, whether you like it or not. It's part of the joy of owning a pussycat. Anyways, I'm going to now, where is the booger? There it is. Okay, I'm going to blow dry this. Okay, this is my 100-year-old Vidal Sassoon blow dryer. It is old, man. They last forever. But this is a hair dryer. I'm going to blow it dry. I'm going to turn off the camera because you don't want to hear a blow dryer. And it will take probably, no more than 2 or 3 minutes to blow dry this. But like, you really want to hear a blow dryer on camera. But anyways, I will be right back. Okay, now this is drying with the blow dryer for probably about 3 minutes, not more than that. And you can see some foxing here and here and some white patchy there. That'll all get covered up. The thing is that this is a transparent medium, and we're layering. Now this is, again, hot press paper, and you can see there's some puddling. They have like little bumpy type spots with watercolor here and there. You have to get used to that, enjoy it, or not work with the medium. It's what the paint does. And if you learn to like that, the odd and interesting ways the paint works, then you're fine. If that bothers you, you might want to try gouache. It's a difficult medium to work with for some people. I like gouache. I haven't used it in a while. I find what happens with gouache, though, is it is thicker. It leaves, it is opaque. So it leaves a different kind of trace, and it will scuff. I mean, not that you're going to be taking watercolors and putting them anywhere, but where they can get scuffed, but it is more delicate, as some people say. Now what I'm doing here is I'm mixing a little bit of alizarin crimson, a little bit of ultramarine, and basically this is it's a forest green color. It's, I believe, permanent. It's viridian green. Yeah, it's viridian. So it's a bit dye based. That's the only problem with viridian. I got hair in my brush. And the brush that I'm using right now is a number 3 Raphael Kolinsky sable. And I definitely am a fan of sable brushes. And I didn't quite mix enough green up here. And the reason why I'm mixing the alizarin into the viridian is you get a really nice purpley gray when you mix those two colors together. It's the good old red as a complement to green. But when you mix a blue-green, like Viridian, with a magenta, which is a blue-red, technically, you end up with some really cool purples. When it dries, you will get not only greens, you'll get purples and blues, and they're two of my favorite colors to mix, especially for shadows and interesting colors, especially when you want to go dark. I like to have that to make my purples. If I don't have a purple handy, I'll mix Viridian and or a blue-green and a magenta, and you will get some just lovely grays and purples, and it's just that color combination mixing together. When they separate, I'll not like do a really good job of mixing them, just so I don't get the perfect color, so that I do get a variety of color in what I'm doing. And you can see I'm leaving this one plant here clear because I'm not sure what I want to do with it yet. And since I wanted to make this area stand out a little more, I'm going to wait to do that. Again, this area underneath his arm is the same as that background, and underneath here, so I'm filling that in. So, and the technique that I'm using is called wet on dry, because I dried the entire background. I'm not doing wet into wet on this. And this area too, underneath his arm, that's the area that, remember, that I shaved out. So you'll be able to see the differences of what happens to the paper when you paint over the top of it after you've done the corrections after you've taken lines. You can tell there's not much difference between this and this. You can see, if you look at it, like I said, if you take a magnifying glass and you look at the place where I scraped it out and the way it isn't scraped out, there's definitely a difference. But again, you have to have a magnifying glass to see, and nobody's going to be looking at your painting with a magnifying glass, except maybe a restorator 100 years from now. Look at it and go, oh, she made a mistake and she did something there. Ah, and I just made a mistake right there, and I'm going to clean it up with my paper towel. Ta-da. We'll go in here, and that's what you got to do too. It's like, if you do a number of watercolor paintings, and after a while you go back in and you fix them. It's one of the ways you can fix them. You just use your paper towel. Okay, so now we're gonna do. Now this area is still wet here, so if I'm gonna do this area down here, I'll stay away from this area right here until it's dry. But I kind of want to go in and do the rocks here, and I'm gonna do them in more of a yellowish color. So this is my yellow ochre here, or I believe it's raw umber. It'll be one of those two. I mean, the colors are very similar. And it'll depend on what I grab at any particular time. But so I'm going to do the rock in a bit of a yellow color. I'm going to start with that. And the thing is, we want to leave maybe the tops of them a little lighter. As I'm looking and going, okay, what I'm going to do, I think this is what I'll do. I'm going to go in with the yellow, and then I'll throw in some purple shadows. And then that will make the tops of the rocks stand out, so I don't have to worry about where I put the highlights at the present. I'll just do the whole thing. Yeah, let's change brushes. This is my number 3, so cover more surface area. See, the puddle, this all stuff here is dry, and I'm not worrying too much about whether the blue bleeds into the yellow there, because it's a rock, and it's rock color, so if it goes a little bit to the blue or the yellow, I'm not really concerned. So I'm just kind of happy accidenting it. If it goes a little bit dark or a little bit gray, then that's something the paint has kind of decided, and I haven't. And I'm not going to worry about these plants here right now. I'm just going to go over the top of them. Keep it transparent. So I'm getting the color down. This is our base color for the rocks. And not worry about it. And we'll make the plants a little darker, and so they'll be the last thing to paint in so that they'll stand out against the rock. I'll worry about this part first. It's kind of like get the basically the large. It's very much like if you do coloring in computer, you do the same thing. You do a large area of a color, and then you go smaller and smaller and smaller. So we're getting the large areas out of the way first. It's kind of like you do it the same thing in oil painting. You block in your major areas of color first. And you'll notice, because I laid down that blue first, it's starting to mix in with the yellow here too, but it's still leaving that raw umber as the color it is. I might make a mistake. Yeah. It's like it's still wet there next to the trees. As long as it doesn't bleed too much, it might be a happy accident. Because the yellow, usually your wet color will bleed into your dry color, whichever is the driest. Or, and it's chemical based too. It's like sometimes one chemical will attract another. And you'll end up with an accident that you have to fix, and then it might be a happy accident or not a happy accident, and there's a piece of now mind you, I picked that up with my brush. That is a piece of eraser particle that I didn't brush away, and the water in the brush caught onto it. There's adhesion in water. It's kind of like a glue. It's like, these are things that you learn by experience, unfortunately. You know, it's kind of like when I was in ski patrol, trying to find a backpack, and we asked one of the senior patrollers, it's like, well, which backpack do you choose? And he couldn't really tell us, and we didn't realize until after the fact. You have to go through like 3 or 4 backpacks until you find that backpack that is just the right backpack for you. That's kind of like the same thing with watercolor. Sorry for the weird illusion, but you play with it for a while, and you get to handle it, and yeah. Okay, I'm going to go, excuse me for starting and stopping stories on you again, but we're trying to keep the back part of him light with what's going on here. So the thing is that I want to go with a light color first, and then we'll get darker and darker and darker. So it's like you want to go over it with, again, we're just filling in the base color, and then I'll go over and get a little bit darker and a little bit darker. Because part of the thing I was thinking, okay, he's in the highlight under the moon. Do I really want to do that? And I'm going, yeah, let's start him with a base, full-on base color. I could have just left it completely like light colored. I'm going to color in those ears too, because those ears are going to go dark. Now, it's like I got like some liquid on his teeth, and his teeth should be white, but those would be in shadow too. So I'm going, not necessarily a bad thing. We'll see what happens. It's like I got some blue in there too, so I might scrape those out with some with a knife after the fact. If ever you want a complete white area and you get an overpaint, okay, here we got this little bit of overpaint on the hand. You see how by using my brush, just scumbling it, you can just sweep that out and change the color, because there wasn't a lot of paint there. So by mixing one color into another, that edge just disappeared into the new color. So I'm sorry, again, digressing. But again, here, see, we've got all that blue in his fingers. Now this may or may not come out. We'll see. And the thing is that I may get his hands darker. And if it doesn't get to the color that I really want, and I haven't like been able to wash it out as I paint over it, like I said, you can always go back in with your knife, scrape it down to the white, and work it up from the white. And that's not a classical way of doing it per se. But you never know how many of those famous watercolor painters did that you didn't see, just because you aren't able to detect that they fix their mistakes in the same way. And it's kind of the same thing with oil paint. I mean, if you paint an area wrong in oil paint, they take, you take a painter's knife and you scrape it back. Now, I overpainted that just a little bit more than I'd like to, so I'm going to dab that back. And see, the moment I dabbed it back, you can't see where I went over the edge. And if it wasn't able to be dabbed back, I can go back and get it with the ink line when I'm done. Because normally when I get done with a piece like this, I'll go over the whole thing one more time in the ink, whatever ink I've used, after I've finished the painting. And that'll take care of any mistakes. But there we go. And I'm using raw umber on this, or raw umber with that blue, with a little bit of blue here. This is basically, the burnt umber. Burnt umber is darker. Not good. There we go. There. Okay. So technically now we've got all the base color down. Now I want to let him dry a little bit, so I'm going to come back down here. This area is still a little bit moist. If I wanted to, I could go back in with my blow dryer on that. But I'm going to take a little bit of purple. And be careful with your purple and your ultramarine about going too dark too fast. Purple will always take things down fast, very rapidly. Even when it dries, it won't be as dark as what you've laid it down, but it goes very dark very fast. So whenever you're using purples or blue purples, be very, very careful with them. Because they're good stainers, especially purple itself will stain easily. So if you don't want it as dark as you got it, it's tough to bring it back up again. It's better to go easy on your darks, get your light colors down first, and then come in with your darker colors, and you will be much happier. And I did one of the biggest goofs you can possibly do around painting. I dumped coffee all over one of my paintings that I hadn't had an opportunity to. I scanned it into the computer, but I was going to send it to somebody, and luckily it wasn't a paid for piece. It was a piece I was going to give away as a gift. But I literally dumped coffee all over the painting. And sometime in the next month or so here, I am going to do a how to fix a painting when you've dumped a cup of coffee on it. It's like how to rescue that painting that you really wanted to save. That will be coming up soon, because this was it has a really nice underdrawing. It's the one I did on the, if you go back through my videos, I did a watercolor, did lion watercolor, and that's my lion. I dumped I dumped a coffee all over my lion, and I am going to have to go back and rescue it. The thing is that it's not going to be taken back to the same painting it was. Yeah, this one is long gone for the world of the saved paintings that way. But as a piece of artwork, I can still save it. I'm not going to throw it out because I dumped coffee on it. I can save it. And I thought, this is when I did it, I was so upset. But I'm going, okay, this is the perfect painting to show all you guys how to save a painting that you've totally, absolutely screwed up. Woo, good. Maybe this is not such a disaster after all. But anyways, there we go. There's our first layer of shadow in there. And you'll notice, because I used yellow rocks and I'm using ultramarine and purple as my shadows for the rocks, and you get these really, really nice, rich colors that the watercolor is doing that. You know, it's like, I'm not doing that. I didn't make that decision. The watercolor, when it bleeds into each other, because the chemicals in each color has decided to do it. Now, I'm looking at how I want to do the shadow underneath them, because the moon's coming down here, and we want a pretty dark shadow there. So what I'm thinking about doing is I'm going to throw a heavier layer of yellow under him, and then I'm going to put a heavy layer of purple on top of that, because I want to get it dark, but I also want to get it rich, and to make it feel like the rock. We'll see if that'll work. Now, mind you, haven't tried this before. Let's see if it works. It may or may not be the solution that I want, but I'm going to give it a try. And that's a lot of times with watercolor, that's a lot of what it is experiment. Because, again, you may make decisions about the paint that you think are going to work one way, and it'll go another way. And then the next thing you want to try is like, okay, it didn't go the way I wanted to do. Why don't I try this? Why don't I try that? And if it doesn't work out, half the fun is figuring out, okay, I didn't do that quite right. What can I do to make it work? Okay, I think this is going to work though. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry before I go over it again with purple. Now I got to figure out what I want to do with Mr. my batty guy here. I think I want to use some Payne's Gray. One of my favorite colors in the whole wide world. And I'm mixing it in with, just on this portion of the plate. Payne's Gray, I like Payne's Gray right out of the tube. Trying to mix it is always a pain in the butt. It's an interesting color. Do I want to? So I'm trying to think if my brush here is a little bit large. I think I'm going to use using one of the zeros instead. Actually, I should use a number 2, but and I gotta be careful, because it's like, how is the moonlight hitting him? Because I want to go, I want to drop a purple shadow on him one more time after I throw this Payne's Gray layer on him. So it's like, I want to keep the areas under here dark, but not, I'm trying to keep this area a little bit light, because that's where I want it to make it feel like he's got moonlight on him. And I may or may not achieve that, because it's like, probably, trying to get to the side here. That edge should probably be lighter. So this. It's like, where is the edge going to be light? Where is it going to be dark? And what I might want to do is just scrape the light away. I haven't decided yet. If you do something wrong, usually you can, like I said, there are very few mistakes that you can't undo. There's always a few. Okay, he's going to be very dark here, but I need thinking some reflected light underneath the foot. So I want to keep that edge probably a little light, and keep the center of the foot dark, so that I can get that reflected light. And again, it's like, right now it's really wet near his toes, so I should probably not be going down there too, because this part has to dry still. And the advantage to watercolor more than anything else is that it dries pretty dang quick. So while you're painting, it's kind of like, okay, this is really wet down here right now, so I got to stay away from that area. What other areas can I paint? Well, that's going too dark, and that's a little bit dark. So, because I keep on, it's like, which side is away from the light? Away from the light. But again, you're going to have reflected light on edges, so I'm trying to keep that edge there a little lighter. And I'm thinking about wanting to clear away that. The nice thing about Payne's Gray too is it's one of the heavier pigmented of the paints, so that if you do lay it down a little bit too heavy, it'll stain, but you can lift a lot of it up if it gets too heavy on you. Okay, and I've got two that dark to dark there, so I'm going to leave an edge that's light. And that's not saying that that would be a natural thing to happen, but that's, you know, when you're trying to get a read. And again, here, it's a combination of reflected light, but I've also got that dark background, so I don't want to get it too dark there. And I'm gonna drop, this is a drop of water I'm putting in. I'll paint water because I got that area too dark. So I'm taking a drop of water. I cleaned the water off my brush, so this is a completely dry brush. And I'm sucking that paint up with a completely dry brush. Okay, that looks good. And that's another way you can get, if you've laid in something too heavy or dark, that you can pick it up. I'm leaving the area underneath his chin. I kind of like that real darkness that I got underneath his chin. As both it brings attention to his face, and it won't dry that dark. It's still wet. That's the other thing that you really have to learn, and it's just by practice and happenstance, is to how to figure out when paint is dry and when it's wet. And it really has, the paper will have a little bit of a sheen to it when it's like that. There we go. Get the inside of his mouth. Yeah. We're starting to get somewhere here. Okay. There we go. The other thing is that, I mean, when we started drawing this piece, I was talking about the problems with artificial intelligence, the prompt to picture stuff. And here's one of the ways that, you know, consider how long it's taken me to do this. Whereas, you know, the other thing is with watercolor, it doesn't take as long to dry. Yeah, sometimes I wonder which I'm faster with, watercolor, or whether I'm faster with digital. But and right now I'm doing the stippling to give him some texture to his arm. And notice too, it's like we started out with, I told you, this was a little bit of burnt umber and blue. And where it's drying, it's coming out with like these neat greens and these different kinds of yellows, because I used a variety of those two colors, the chemicals that are used to make that paint. It'll separate out in different ways, so you get a variance of tone and color, and that makes it really interesting and unique. And that's what I love about watercolor, is that it makes those decisions for you, and you can come up with just the really coolest colors that you wouldn't have personally chosen, but they come out with the watercolor itself. And you don't, I haven't found a way to, I'm sure there's a way to do it in digital. I can't seem to get the watercolor brushes to do the things that I want them to do. I just haven't experimented enough. And I've been working with Photoshop since 2000. Yeah, 22 years. It's like, geez, you haven't worked with it enough, Hunter? But anyways, we're doing watercolor here, not digital. But again, because, as I was saying, with digital art, the one thing is, unless I scan this into the computer, which I will, you can't steal this until it's done and on the computer. But you can, I mean, with your own digital art, that's a fact too. The funny thing is that both DeviantArt and ArtStation have not opt in but opt out. And it's like you have to actually take each one of your pieces and opt them out in order for them not to be collected by AI, which is ridiculous. I mean, the default should be that, okay, if I want you to steal my art, I'll say, yeah, go ahead and steal my art. Because technically, or if I want this to be part of a Creative Commons, I'll put Creative Commons on it. You know? It's kind of like, we already have that thing on the internet. If you want, I have a couple of pieces. I have some political cartoons that I did. That, hey, you want to take this and use it for whatever you want to use. I did a really nice caricature of Sarah Palin. And you can find it. It's Creative Commons. Go ahead and use it. Be my guest. Do whatever you want with the dang thing. But I said that in the first place. And that's what... that's getting too dark there. That's why we put Creative Commons in the first place. And the fact that, you know, that the AI folks completely ignored that, you know, that says something right there, that they don't understand. You know, it's like art's a product. It's like, you know, somebody was, oh God, this area, I'm waiting for this area to dry, and it still doesn't want to dry. Okay, so we go back to this boy and start putting the purple on him. And I'm stippling this in. Remember what I said about, you know, things getting too dark too fast? That's why I'm always worried about when I use ultramarine or purples. Again, they get dark really, really fast. And this area is not, you can tell it's still a little wet because of the way the watercolor is expanding really fast when I stipple. If it were perfectly dry, there would be a really solid edge to each dot. And because you can see immediate foxing, you know that the paper's still damp. So that's another way too. If you, for some reason, you're concerned about painting on top of wet paper when you really want dry, drop a little dot of color and you'll know immediately. And then if it doesn't work, then you do this. You just take your paper towel and go boink. And then that dot that you tried will come right up. And right now it's like, I'm not minding these dots that are kind of scattering, because that'll give me some nice foxing and some, again, texture to the piece. And I love texture. And that's it. I mean, it's the reason why I like using the hot press over cold press. If you want less of the foxing, less of the spider webbing, use cold press. You think you can't get real fine detail in cold press, but you really can. It's got some texture to it, but you still can get some real fine detail in cold press. I use for my holiday cards. If you go back and check the Dragon Dance piece that I did a few weeks back, that's done on cold press. A lot of the alphabet pieces are done on cold press, and so you can get some very detailed work on cold press. So don't be concerned too much. But what it won't do is it won't give you the spider webby foxing thing. And like I said, I like a little bit of that. Kind of a little bit too much stipple here, a little bit dark. I'm gonna pull that up. See how nicely that works with the paper towel? You don't want something? Pull it up with your paper towel. Again, this is down in shadow. So I'm putting that ultramarine in here. Alright. The yellow here is still taking its good sweet time to dry. I think it's because the paper underneath it, I laid down the purple. Yeah. So still a little bit damp. I should have probably blow dried it a little bit harder. I might do that as we're getting close to being done here. And I want to put a little bit of color in the clouds here. So we get some shape to the clouds. And again, nothing necessarily precise, because again, if it's your background, that's not where you want your eye to be, but you want some interest up there. So that's why I'm putting. And there's going to be some, you know, shape to the clouds, and they're going to have some shadow on them. And of course, the moon itself, let's see here. Gotta keep it a little bit light. I'm gonna throw a little bit of yellow into that gray. Keep it a little warmer so it's not the same color as the sky. It's not gonna be the same blue as the sky. And then I'm gonna put a little bit of stippling around the edge here, just to give it some volume. Because even though the moon's flat from a distance, we still have a feeling it's a ball. So I'll put a little bit of color on the edge. There we go. All right. I'm sorry, I gotta blow dry this thing so we can finish it up. So I'm gonna stop the camera for a moment. I'm gonna blow dry it, and then we're gonna fish it up. Okay, time to wrap this baby up. Trying to think what I want to do with these the plants on the side. I don't want to take them too green, because I'm liking we're keeping it kind of to the I like the blues and the grays that have been going on here, but I'm going to put a little bit of permanent green light and mix it in with the blue over here. And we're going to I'm going to basically paint the plants that I've got here. And just doing kind of leaf brushing. So it's more or less like stippling. And I'm going to do a few here and a few there and come back so that each of the leaves have a chance to kind of dry a bit. And probably I should do 2 colors at least of green. Get maybe something a little bit more yellow in there, so we don't have a uniform plant life here. I got another piece of eraser. Let's get this one up here. And again, probably should keep it light first, actually, before we go dark. So you can paint dark leaves over light leaves. So keep your color a little bit on the light side first. Because again, you're using a transparent medium here, so you always want to go light to dark. And, you know, you'd think that's kind of evident, but no. Nothing, you know, I'm not taking it for granted that everybody knows it's transparent, therefore you go light to dark. Yeah. Is the better way to work. And the thing is, too, is understanding which colors have lighter value and which colors have darker value. It's like some reds, in some respects, will be darker than blues. It all depends on what kind of red you're using. Like if you're using an alizarin crimson, which is a dark red, or cadmium, which is a heavy red, because it has tendency to be opaque. The more pigment you have in a color, the darker it will lay down. It also will lay down chalkier. Yeah, of course. Of course, I painted with blue-green. Let's go with just yellow on top of that one, just because it's right next to that dark background. I'll just paint that all in with a raw umber. And then I'm going to blot that out. And go back in one more time. No, that's not what I wanted. That's better. Okay. And I need to get the yellow out of his foot. So I'm just putting some water there and I'm scumbling it back. Yeah, that all of a sudden, no yellow. Amazing. That's the advantage of watercolor too. It's technically, it's not as permanent as if I were working with, say, on a liquid acrylic. Liquid acrylic, it'll lay down and it'll be permanent and you can't scumble it back. And with some watercolor, some colors in watercolor, you can't quite do that either. This happens to be, the raw umber is a heavy pigmented color that does not stain. The earth tones have a tendency to be that way, except for burnt sienna stains very nicely. But when I use burnt sienna, I actually want it to stain. When I use it as an antiquing type of, when I'm doing an underpainting, I like to use burnt sienna. Okay, now we're going to use the purple. I'm going to throw it. That's definitely violet. If you get it in a tube, it's not called purple. It's usually called violet. And I am going to lay down the shadow underneath this guy. And I'm putting it over that raw umber, the yellow that we had. And when it dries, it will dry very interesting. And this is going to be, the shadow is going to be my darkest part of the painting. And basically it'll act as an anchor. I probably should have kept a white edge there. When I'm all done, I'll see if I want to just scrape it out, because it is the edge of the rock. I might scrape that, I don't know. Haven't decided yet. It does not have to be done. It is a choice. But then all what you do in your painting is a choice. And it's just making constant, okay, what do I want to put here? What do I want to put there? What color works better here? What color works better there? But there you go. See how nicely that purple went down? And it is dark. There we go. Now, put a little bit more. Let's see here. Wrong brush. You let it. Smaller brush. There we go. That's what I wanted. To get that shadow in there, it's like that one too far up. There we go. But you'll notice everything in shadow here, where I'm throwing in the extra bit of purple. The value and the color mixture. There we go. That looks nice. And I think put a little bit more here. And definitely want to put some in his ear. And then I'm going to put a little bit of detailing in the trees over here. And the reason why I'm doing that is just to get a little bit of harmony going on, so that your eye, when it comes over here, it's adding into that harmony of the trees over there. A little bit of an extra interest. Okay, now I'm going to go in with the raw umber I've decided. I'll give my leaves yellow. Give them more yellow-green. kind of sagey. Reminds me of the sage, big leaves of sage that you find out in the chaparral here in California. I'm adding the dots in for interest again. It's a little bit heavy, so dot that back. Yeah, too much water. Yeah, it's like that line between thick and thin. Trying to get the right amount of paint into your brush compared to what you're not putting into your brush. Like I said, I'm going to detail these up a little bit, I think, when I'm done here too with, go back in, like I said, with the pen. Let's stick it right there. Let's heavy up those. Heavy those up with a little bit of brown. So my brush flies away out of my hand. It's brown in there. Come on, brown. It's not. And the thing is, if you get too much, like I've got threw a lot of yellow into this or green into this tray, I can always scoop out, you know, whatever. It's like it's overdone that. It's like stick your there. And I got the green out. So if you find that when you've been mixing inside your color, just take your paper towel and pull it out. Like I said, you just have to make a few mistakes here and there occasionally to figure out how to undo your mistakes. And I'm just doing some a little stippling here just to make it feel like I've got, you know, maybe some other kind of plants. And then I want to throw some, I'm going to let that dry just a little bit just so I can throw some purple shadows under there. I'm going to throw a little green up in the moon. Like right on this edge here. Just throw it in that direction just a little bit. And then, I'm going to give him red eyes. We're going to give him red eyes because, and I'm the only dot of cad red in the entire place. Mix a little bit of cad red and just straight cad red with that in his eye. And now that I've thrown it just in his eye, I'm going to let these dry a little bit, and I'm going to throw a few red berries in the background too. It's like, don't like one spot of color, one little spot of color. Yeah, tongue's too purple. I want more pink. Pink! Pink, I say pink. More alizarin crimson. Okay, and that's still a little bit on the dark side, right? Okay. Blot. Ta-da! Pink! It's like anything goes too dark, hit it with your frickin' paper towel. And this is the thing too. If it goes too light, because you hit it with your paper towel, you can take it dark again. But when in doubt, blot with paper towel. Okay, that again, that's a little bit, yeah, I don't know. Kind of like that though. All right, what I'm going to do, take that into the ear there. I actually like that. It's like this thing was going too dark, and I'm going, nah, I kind of like that because a lot of bats' ears are darker. They have darker ears. Make his nose. Okay. And then we want some purple underneath our plants here. Blot those a bit. I guess that's going a little bit too much to the red. Yeah, that looks good. And then I said I want a couple of red berries. Let's see here. I'm going to definitely put some up here. Maybe one or two here. And one or two here. And they look more pronounced now, but they'll dry nice and subtle. Let's see here. Oh, I know. I want to put a little bit of yellow into him, just because I haven't put any per se raw umber into him, so I'm going to put just a little bit. So it gives a little bit of a reflective light. And that it just gives that little hint of harmony in the painting by just adding just a little hint here and a little hint there. And I think we're done. That's our Batsquach. Thanks for stopping by. Like I said, what I'll be doing now is I'll probably put another hour into it by going all over it, tightening up all the black line in it, and that'll just make everything pop whenever you put the inking over your piece. And then I'll pick out some white in his eye. And I still haven't decided about this edge here, whether or not I want to pick that out white. I might pick out this edge going down here white, so it stands out a little stronger. And that's about it. Thank you for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed watching me paint. I hope you got something out of it. Go ahead and paint your own Batsquach. Anyways, thanks again. Llyn Hunter, LLYNHUNTER. Please like the video, subscribe, follow me. I come back once a week with something for you. Thanks much. Bye-bye.